had some friends ask me before, well, like, what is film? And I'm like, well, it's an art. And they're like, no, like, what is the film? Like, what is that material? It's a little strip like this. This is called celluloid. I thought that was the kind of fat that you get in your thighs, but that's cellulite, so. It's a light-sensitive strip of material. When you shoot film, you make an impression of light onto this light-sensitive piece here. Think of it as pressing your hand into sand. Sometimes you press too light and nothing shows up. Sometimes you press too hard and it's too deep, and sometimes you get it just right. So today I'm just gonna go over the ways to measure that impression, the ways to get that, how to shoot film. There's a million tutorials on YouTube on how to do this. You could either be 1 in a million or none in a million. So here we go. This is 35 millimeter film. Each frame that you get in this is 35 millimeters across or something like that. To show you something different, this is a roll of 16 millimeter film that I shot in college. This is a film, like motion picture. Okay. The little images in here, there's 16 millimeters across. You can get 8 millimeter, you can get 120 millimeter, you can get a lot of millimeters. But 35 millimeter is the most popular, the most accessible, probably the cheapest, and probably the best to learn on. So you can get 35 millimeter a lot of places. I think you should support your local camera shops. That's the best way to get it. It comes like this. There's different things on here that I'll teach you later what they mean. This is one roll of film, and that's shot on something like this. This is a 35 millimeter SLR single leaf Rama. Yep, single lens reflex. You don't really need to know that. You might. In future videos, I'm gonna help you pick out a good starter camera. This is a great one. You're gonna want to look for something that has a light meter to learn. More on that later. 35 millimeter comes in a lot of forms. There's black and white, there's color negative, there's slide film. The best thing to learn on is either black and white or color negative. So what you do is you load your camera, you shoot, you unload your camera, you take it, you either send it away to someone to develop it for you, take it to your local camera shop. There's a lot of options. It goes through a chemical process, and then they print the images for you, and then you get the images. Before you get your camera, before you get your film, before you even step foot outside and do one, I think you need to understand, I know you need to understand what all goes into exposure. You want to learn what you're doing. You want to learn what the things on your camera even mean. I'm here to break all that down for you. There are 3 elements to getting your image properly exposed. Film speed, shutter speed, and your f-stop or your aperture. You want to think of this like a triangle. They all affect each other. They all have to work in harmony. To help explain this to you, I want to use the analogy of an eyeball, okay? Your iris, the color of your eye, your eyelids, and your pupil. The camera is a mechanical eye, okay? So you have to be the brain for the eye. You have to tell it what to do. So in this analogy that I have for you today, your film speed is going to be your iris, your shutter speed is going to be your eyelids, and your aperture or your f-stops are going to be your pupil. What is film speed? Film speed is film sensitivity to light, so how much it needs, how much it can handle. You describe a film speed by calling it slow or fast or medium. Let's go back to that analogy really quick. Your eye color. Have you ever heard that people with blue eyes, it's really bright for them when they go outside and on a bright day, but they can see better in low light, and people with darker eyes can handle bright light better, but they can't see as well at night. Okay, that's what I heard. I googled it. Slow film, something like this, ISO 200, is really good for when there's a lot of light available. There's not going to be a whole lot of detectable grain in slower films. It doesn't shoot slow motion well because you're going to need slower shutter speeds to get that light to come in. Kind of, you'll get that later when I explain shutter speeds. It's best for shooting like outside in the daylight on a bright day. Medium speed films like 400 ISO, when it's very average, it's like the best of both worlds. 400 film, because it's right in the middle there, you don't want to push it to any extreme, like try to do like, you know, the night sky and the stars and stuff, and you don't want to point it right at the sun, but I have found that I can push it a little bit farther in each direction than probably other film and still yield really good results. Okay, fast film, we're talking ISO 800. It thrives in low light. So back to the eye color thing I was talking about, think about blue eyes and light colored eyes that can see better at night. Fast film shoots motion really well because you don't need a lengthy shutter speed. You can just quick and it gets what it needs to get, so it stops that frame in time. 800 speed film can be really grainy and really gritty, so if you're not looking for that effect in your images, I would not go there. Okay, shutter speed. To continue my eye analogy, that's your eyelids, okay? How quickly you are cutting off the light source and exposing your pupil. bear with me. Shutter speed is measured in fractions of a second. 1/60 is 1/60th of a second. Like, that's not. 1/1000 would be like, right? The larger the denominator, the quicker your thing's gonna fire off. Your shutter speed's gonna go. High shutter speeds is the bigger number on the bottom. Slow shutter speeds is the smaller number on the bottom. So this is a pencil at 60 frames a second. This is my pencil at 30 frames a second. Also, you can see how much brighter and washed out I am because the camera is having more time for the light to hit the sensor or the film in your film photography case. So this is 250. So see how many less, I look crazy doing this, but see how you can see the pencil like frozen in time more than, or before it was like, woo, woo. And also it's darker because it's like, you're not letting the light hit your sensor as fast. So just like that example, this is how you're gonna freeze something in motion or you're gonna show motion blur. So that's creatively, that's up to you. Again, you'll want lower shutter speeds in low light and higher shutter speeds when there's a lot more available light because of how much you might overwhelm your film. And this all goes back to your film speed, your eye color, you know? Like this all ties together, I promise. Really quick, I do want to explain underexposure and overexposure. So underexposure would be when you have not exposed your film enough, aka it's very dark. Sometimes things don't even come out. Say you're taking a picture of like a friend and the sun is right behind them. Their face is going to be underexposed unless you know what you're doing, which in first case you wouldn't be putting the sun behind your friend, but anyway, small roast. But that's something you're going to learn how to find that balance when you shoot your first, second, third, or 20th roll of film. Okay, aperture and f-stop. This is your pupil. Aperture is a measure of the opening in your lens to let light in and hit your film. Most lenses go 2.8, 4, 5.6, 8, 11, 16, 32. I think like an average, that's like a pretty average span, with 2.8 being your widest open one. So that's like when it's dark and your pupil is huge, you're trying to absorb as much available light as there is to see things, okay? Your middle ground is going to kind of be that 5.6 to 11. Your smaller apertures are going to be up in that like 16, 22 range. So that's when it's really bright out and your pupil's really tiny because your eye is overwhelmed. Apertures not only affect the amount of light coming in your lens, it also affects your range of focus, your depth of field, and how you can manipulate how far something is in focus. This is just what helps me to remember, like a 2.8. So I'm thinking, I'm walking around in a dark room, my eyes are wide open, my pupils are huge, and I can only see my hand in front of my face, right? I can't like read a poster across the room. So when you're wide open, your focus is very shallow. On the contrary, picture yourself atop a mountain range. It's a bright, beautiful day. You're shooting a picture of the whole landscape and you're looking all the way out. Your pupil's probably kind of tiny, right? But everything up into those mountains, you know, all the shrubbery and the bushes in the village and then the mountain, all that's in focus. So if you think about it that way, wide open, I can't see anything, it's shallow, very, very tiny pupils. Oh my God, I can see the mountain and all of France, okay? To go back to the triangle, you're going to have to figure out the relationship between these. And when you do one, well, how do I have to compensate in another element? It's kind of like an inverse relationship, right? Is that the right word? Go lower on your aperture, aka you're widening your pupil. You need to blink faster, right? So your shutter speed needs to be faster because you need to keep even the amount of light that's coming in, right? You can't have a wide open pupil and a really long shutter speed unless you want to like stare at the sun like this. Like think about being the brain for the eye and what the eye would need you to do to properly see what you're looking at. If you have a really, really, really tiny aperture, like the hole's really small, you might inversely need a lot of time to pass between your blinking. That little hole is only going to allow so much light to come in, so if you extend the amount of time that's open, it'll suck in more light. I'm going to explain this in another video, but when you're looking to get a film camera and start, you're going to want something with a light meter that helps you determine some of these factors by yourself. So in the three things that we discussed today, the little triangle of exposure here, your shutter speed, your f-stop, and your film speed, when you select your film, you select your film speed. That is a set variable, a fixed variable. You're not changing. One of your three things is taken care of. You need to worry about the other two, which would be f-stop, aperture, and your shutter speed, okay? And you're going to start to learn how those two things work together. Again, like I said, the inverse relationship. When one is like this, you do the other one like this. Until you get really good and you know what you're doing, don't push extremes. You want to kind of be in the middle. I have 400 speed film in this camera, okay? So my ISO, my film speed is taken care of. I want to shoot a picture of my friend on the sidewalk. Your best bet while you're learning is to start your settings in the middle. What I mean by that is my f-stops go from 1.8 to 16 on this lens. So smack dab in the middle there is 5.6. I'm going to throw it at 5.6. I have a lot of shutter speeds listed on here, but the one right in the middle is 1/60. I personally already know that's too slow for for being outside on the sidewalk. But okay, I'll put it at 125. Let me humor me here. So then I'm going to go, and because I have a light meter in my camera, I'm going to point this at my friend. When I point it at my friend, these little lights are going to light up inside the viewfinder for me. That's your light meter, which is powered by like a little battery that lasts a long time and goes in here. That's going to tell you some suggestions on what to do. It's going to be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. If you want this shutter speed, if you're trying to shoot at 125, you're going to need to put it on f-stop 11, or else you're not going to get a picture. And over the time of using that, you'll start to recognize what light setting you're in, what the camera suggested, what you think, and then you'll see the results. Okay, with all of that being said, this is my understanding of shooting film photography. I've been doing it for 8 years. I'm like pretty alright at it, you know? And this is the way that I find it best to explain to other people. I could have broken it down way more in depth. This is not a college course. This is a YouTube video. I kind of wanted to like hurry up. One thing I really recommend with learning is getting a little exposure book, especially when you're shooting your first couple rolls of film. You're on the scene, you're ready to take a picture. Jot down the light situation. Like, is it bright? Is it overcast? Are you inside? Also record the settings that you did. Write down what your f-stop was, what your shutter speed was, and like what film you were using. When you take your film to get developed and then you get it back, in order, you're gonna have a little list of notes that say, hey, you know, shot 3, like that was really dark. What could I have done differently? Or what settings did I use in that environment that didn't work or that worked really well? So you'll be able to kind of compare and improve notes for next time. I highly recommend doing that. I'm probably gonna make another video including tips on choosing your own first camera, how to find one that's good to start with, how to load your film and how to unload your film, where to send it to get it developed. If there's anything else that you want me to go over in that video, comment or find some way to contact me and tell me your questions or tell me what you want explained, and I will try to answer that in the next video. Until then, thank you very much.